Because of the cataclysm of nuclear wars between Atlantis and Lemuria, it is said that the Earth's axis changed and the poles began to change with the axis. The Lemurians have since established a thriving kingdom within these caverns. These thriving underground cities are Shambhala, the Lesser One. Shambhala, the Lesser One, is the seat of government for the Agarian networks. Now, Shambhala, the Lesser One, is an inner continent with smaller satellite colonies with enclosed ecosystems. These colonies are located just beneath the Earth's crust or discreetly within mountains. That would include Mount Shasta, one which has been interacting with other planetary systems until current times. These vast caverns systems connect to Tibet, allegedly linking the Agadi systems of Central Asia to the Snake World. The old ones are hominid, extremely long-lived, and predate Homo sapiens by more than 1 million years. The old ones often kidnap human children to tutor and rear as their own. I have since done a little bit more research and dug into some of the old content that I've had, and I wanted to go over some things. First, the topic of Sons of Belial, which I earlier said had nothing to do with the Atlanteans, but I've since changed my mind because of the wording that's involved with it. According to Plato's Republic, Atlantis was destroyed because it was ruled by leaders who became corrupt and were degenerates. Now, that is also something that I found after further research that concerns the term of Sons of Belial. And like I said, I thought that it had nothing to do with Atlantis, but I found out that Belial was actually an old Hebrew term for the worthless. Now, after I went and did that, I also dug a little bit deeper as well and came up with some more stuff concerning the old ones. Now, the old ones are also an immensely intelligent and scientifically advanced race, and they have chosen to structure their own environment under the surface of the planet and manufacture all their necessities. The elder race are Titans who came to this planet from another solar system in the prehistoric past. Realizing that the sun was causing them to age prematurely, living on the surface of the earth, they escaped underground. Now, this would be associated with Sitchin's version of the Anunnaki. The elder race build huge subterranean complexes in which to live. Eventually, the elder race decided to seek out a new home on a new planet, evacuating the Earth and leaving behind their underground cities populated by mutated beings. The evil Darrow detrimental robots and the good Tarot are integrated robots. Now, there is also something else that I do want to correct too. I said before that the Lemurians or the Atlanteans, whoever went under the ground and discovered the caverns, had discovered these caverns, but I was wrong. What happened was I had to go back into my research and find out what happened, or what I found out a long time ago, and I discovered that I'd mixed them up with a group or a society called the Atlans. Now, the Atlans are the ones who discovered these underground cavern networks along the east coast of Brazil, where reportedly they were once a part of the antediluvian Atlantean Empire. Now, that is what I didn't realize when I said that, and I have to correct myself on it. It was the Atlanteans or the Atlantans that discovered these underground caverns instead of the Atlanteans. Now, I've also got to point out too that there are conflicting stories that are taking place in our video streams, and that's because there's multiple stories about this conflict and about everything when it comes to the hollow earth theory. So sometimes you'll hear that the Lemurians are reptilians. Sometimes you'll hear that they are the good guys. Sometimes you'll hear that the Atlanteans are the good guys and that they are reptilians or corrupted by the Anunnaki and stuff like that. There's a lot of stories here, so I want to bring that back up again and let everybody understand that before I go further.
After World War I, German occultist groups such as the Thule Society became interested in Agartha. Agartha is frequently associated or confused with Shambhala, which figures prominently in Vajrayana Buddhism and Tibetan Kalachakra teachings. These are two rabbit holes we should also go down at some point, because those are some of the most ancient sources of these stories, and they go into like full detail on descriptions of it. And now, I don't know if you guys remember, but Krito Mutwa was the guy that the African shaman that David Icke interviewed, and basically told him about the ancient reptilian myths in Africa. And this was by design, mind you, because they were setting the planet up. Criminals and also rebels against the empires. June was a prison colony like Australia. Earth fits this archetype. Like in June, however, the Earth's genetic cauldron of survival, the strongest DNA emerges, built by design. The current expression of the two brothers still tossing nuclear bombs, then called East of Eden, which is happening now, actually, mind you. And I suggest you guys look up the Orion Wars to find out that galactic history. I first heard about this story maybe 10, 15 years ago, when I came across a lady called, when I was researching occultism, and I was coming across a lady called Helena Petrovna Blavatsky. She created the Theosophical Society, and she talked about some of these ancient myths. That's where my research came into it, actually, because I found out that Hitler was quite interested in this, and he believed that the origins of the German people came from these what do you call them, Aryan tribes that existed in a place called Hyperborea, they called it, which means the place beyond the north, the place beyond the north wind, or something like that. And to some people to some scientists and occultists at that time, they believed that was the North Pole. What Hitler did is he ended up sending his SS troops to India and Tibet and places like that to gather these ancient stories and texts to try and find out where this hidden city was located. These stories were revived by Helena Petrovna Blavatsky. She was an esoteric occultist in the late 1800s. She could like predict the future and tell people about their pasts and all sorts of stuff. They were a class of beings in Hindu mythology that are described as power-seeking demons related to more benevolent devas in Hinduism. And, That's a whole nother topic we can go into later, but I'll describe a little bit of it now as well in some of my source material. Agartha was a vast complex of caves underneath Tibet inhabited by demigods called Asuras. The Asuras are also known as reptilians. When I first started searching this just now, I found a couple of sources that came up pretty interesting. Agartha Journey to the Stars, which I found out about in the New Age of Russia, Occult and Esoteric Dimensions, which I found out about in this book called Blue Blood, True Blood by Stuart Swerdlow. The primary entry points to the inner earth are the North Pole, where there is an opening of 1,300 miles, the South Pole, with an opening of 950 miles. These can be seen from space. That is why commercial aircraft are not allowed to fly over these areas, and the military basically controls it. Not because of the magnetic disturbances, which was the official reason Admiral Byrd reported on these openings in the 1920s, until his information was concealed by the government. At the very center or nucleus of the inner Earth, there is a globe of energy left over from the creation of this planet that acts like an inner sun. It is the light from this object suspended by gravity and gravitational force that causes the light of the aurora borealis. That's the magnetic dynamo of the Earth. Numerous cave entrances to the inner Earth exist in the Rocky Mountains and the Sierra Mountains in the western United States. Entries also exist in the Alps, the Himalayas, the Andes, and the Caribbean, which I suggest is probably fault lines, you know. These are also numerous there are also numerous suboceanic entry points, particularly in the deep trenches of the Pacific Ocean and the Caribbean Sea, and the Atlantic submarine mountain ranges, especially on or near the Azores, Canary Islands, and the Falklands. These areas are closely guarded by local governments and the New World Order elite forces. Artificially created entrances exist under the new Denver airport, and that's why it's such a weird airport. The Giza Plateau in Egypt, which would be under the Sphinx. The major Air Force complexes around the world, such as Area 51 as well, and many of the temples in India and China. A major Chinese entry point is under the Senshi Pyramid that is out of bounds for everyone in Western China. Of course, with the reptilians of the Earth's off the Earth's surface, the Atlanteans were free to play with this new mankind and establish humans as the ruler of this planet. India, Russia, and Germany are all connected to this story in the ancient past. They all have ties to these Aryan races that existed back then. And even today, they have pretty close ties as well, you know, politically and other ways. Now, remember in the text that I just read, it said here, magnetic disturbances, which was the official region. Admiral Byrd reported on these openings in the 1920s until his information was concealed by the government. Okay, now the question is, who is Admiral Byrd? What did he find out? And why was this information concealed by the government? All right, this is where we get into out of the realm of conjecture and mythology to the realm of modern history. We find this admiral was a real person called Richard E. Byrd.